If you're a facilities manager at a university, you know students rely on the cafeteria for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the occasional late-night snack. So when a dishwasher breaks down and dirty plates pile up, the mess hall can turn messy in the blink of an eye. Enter Grainger. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast delivery, the product you need now is never far away. So you can turn that dishwasher back into a lean, clean washing machine. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Ham, old cheese. Ham, old cheese. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. You got a belly up to the bar, we've kept your seat, and it's great to see you back. Dink is going to be your bartender tonight. He pours with the best of them, and the lava lamp is in fact lighted, though you can't see it because I'm doing audio only right now. That's a story for another day. We don't water our drinks just like we don't water our conversation. Politics, religion, crime culture, race, sex, economics, science, law. We talk about it all here at the Saloon. Nothing is sacred, the speech is free, but the booze is not. All that we ask is that you flush the toilet, jiggle the handle, and don't forget to tip your waitress. Tonight, we have Alan Thomas in the Saloon. And I wanted to have him on because we're going to talk, as is customary, about the unexplained, some of the paranormal, perhaps some about Sasquatch. But the biggest revelation these days is about UFOs. So, having said that, there was a major release of some information. And in the process of attempting to make heads or tails out of all of this, I figured the best person to be able to do that would, in fact, be Alan Thomas. And we spoke a little bit earlier to make sure that things technologically were working. So, Alan Thomas, is that you, sir? Do I have you? Of course. Okay. Let's try this again. For whatever reason, the technology that I have does, for whatever, it doesn't necessarily work the first time. So let's try it. Uno más. And see. Now I can even hear the ring. Which, okay. Alan, are you there, sir?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I knew it. Things can never be easy. I can never get anybody that I want to talk to at the beginning of the show through one call. For whatever reason, it always has to be the second call. In any event, thank you for being here tonight. I greatly, greatly appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. It is my pleasure and an honor.
I have had Alan Thomas on any number of times before, and any time that he and I speak, as a matter of fact, 2 years ago, year and a half, 2 years ago, about that, I did the longest show I'd ever done with Alan Thomas and Kaiser Schuff. And it turned out that show was about 5 hours long, maybe 6 hours long. It was so long that Alan told me his wife said they had to go to the store and pick up some groceries. So Alan left. Kaiser and I spoke. Alan came back from the store after having picked up groceries, and we just continued on along. That's a long-ass show. So
that was so fun.
But long. Kaiser wants to do that again sometime. In any event, for those of you who don't know, Alan Thomas has a long history involved in the paranormal, the unexplained, Sasquatch, and UFOs. I met Alan in 2006 or 7, I believe, when there was a UFO convention in Sacramento. And Alan came with Jeff Gonzalez and set up the studio, and I listened to Alan and Jeff. And I met both, and since then, Alan has become a really great friend to the point where I've gone down to Fresno to meet him. We have since gone to other locales and venues regarding UFOs and the unexplained. And anytime we get together, it's just a really great time. But for those people who are not familiar with you, Alan Thomas, can you tell folks in sort of general how it is that you came to be associated with the paranormal, the unexplained, maybe Sasquatch, maybe UFOs? Because your belief is that a lot of these things are dovetailed together in some fashion, and I would also add that you're from and near a town called Fresno in California. Always spell it with a K. And some people may not know what Fresno is. It's in an agricultural area. But Fresno, for whatever reason, seems to be a veritable hotbed of all of these things going on, and they've been going on for quite some time. So, Alan Thomas, how did you come to be involved in all of these things?
Well, actually, I wasn't into it at all, in the early life. I mean, I didn't go, as far as I didn't even go to church. I was a heathen, regular person, no church, no Bigfoot didn't exist. UFOs, that was laughable. And I lived my life like that until one morning, 5:30 a.m. on a hunting trip, I saw a Bigfoot, and then I watched it for over an hour and a half, and that changed the whole course. If that's real, then it made my mind say, if that's real, then there could be a lot of other stuff that I think is not real might be real. And then I continued working, but on weekends and spare time, I would go looking for him. But I thought I was the only one that saw one. There was no internet. I heard about the Bob Gimlin thing, but I never heard any stories around here. And if you did bring it up, everybody made fun of you. So I never really talked about it. Then I got hurt and retired, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to see if there's other people that have had, Bigfoot encounters. And lo and behold, that's how I found Jeff and a whole bunch of other guys, and we kind of hooked up and started investigating everything and sharing it on the internet, and we've been going gangbusters ever since, really.
There's one event, however, that in my mind really kind of defined you, And I don't know if you've spoken about it in the past, and it led to a discussion about the pain that you endure. But essentially, there was a medical mishap that occurred to you, and you ended up, if I'm not mistaken, dying in a hospital in an OR twice. And yep. I picked up and sensed that was the real turning of a very serious page in your life. And can you kind of tell everybody what happened, Alan Thomas, with that, and how has it affected your ability to look at and examine all of these things and life itself?
Well, it was real life-changing. I mean, it was just a simple procedure. They screwed up and blocked a major artery feeding the right leg with blood. And then it went 8 days with no blood flow, so no oxygen. So it started killing off like the nerves and real fragile things, right away within minutes. And then within hours and days, it started to really take out muscles and bones and all that kind of stuff, because you can't live without oxygen. No part of your body can. And after 8 days, then they did the surgery, and during that surgery is when I passed on the table twice and went somewhere, and it was an interesting thing. It was like it was interesting. It's a long story, but when I came back and got well, I was in a wheelchair for about 3 years. And then I decided, I didn't like to be butt level with everyone. Like, you didn't see eye to eye with anyone anymore. Now it was butt level. I was staring at everybody's buttocks, and I was like, I am not staying like this. This is a nasty place to be,
Yeah.
So I started getting up and walking, and I pretty soon was out of the chair and on a walker, and about a year, and then I graduated to a cane, and I was on that for quite a while. And finally, I've thrown the cane down too. I mean, much to my dismay, I fall down sometimes, but just because I can't feel the leg giving out, it just goes. But only I'd rather be like that than be, attached to something that I have to use. I hate being told, or made to do something. It goes against everything in me. But I started realizing that trip or that incident changed how I felt things. And that's only, I don't know how to really explain it.
Your perception of things?
Yeah, like when I go to the woods, if there is anything around, I know it is before everybody does, anyone else, before it even reveals itself, whatever it is. And we go and we do haunted places and stuff like that. When I walk in, I know what room it's in, the whole thing. I mean, it's weird. And it took me a while to figure out how to use it. You know what I mean? Like how to make it work in my favor, and also trust it, because I didn't trust it at first. I thought it was just me. You get a weird feeling, so it's a weird feeling. But then as the investigation would roll through and things started happening all around, and it was exactly in the places where you knew it was happening, then I started like honing the skill, I guess you would call it. And ever since,
People who have had near-death experiences, up to including death experiences, which is what you have, in reading information about this, it indicates that their lives are inexorably changed, generally for the better, post the event or the series of events. With you, it was 2 separate events, having died on the table twice, but having come back from that and then discovering that you are more sensitive or open, or maybe I guess you could say susceptible to input regarding things that others, like perhaps myself, are not. And then that expanded into you having met Jeff, etc. So you have historically, Alan Thomas, dealt with the paranormal, the unexplained, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, and UFOs, because in your time since then, for whatever reason, you've kind of experienced all of these things. Am I missing the mark here?
No, you're right on the money. In fact, I've seen I think, I don't know what it is, but it's almost like I'm a magnet to stuff. And not only that, like last night, I had to do our dryer broke. So, my wife has allergies, and some of the other kids have allergies here. And so we have to we wash everything, and then I take it to the laundry and dry it. But I needed cash. So I went to the bank, and there was a guy there, and he had a little dog, on a leash, and he was at the ATM, and there's another one right next to him. So I just walked up to that one and put my card in it. Little dog's jumping up and down on me, licking my hand and everything. He's like, I think he called it Frankie. He's like, Frankie, knock it off. Frankie, hey, get over here, And he looks at me and he says, there's something about you. And I told him, really, that's interesting. I don't know what to say, And he says, yeah, Frankie, he goes, I trust Frankie. Like, I use Frankie. Like, if Frankie likes somebody, I like him. If Frankie doesn't like somebody, then I don't like him. He goes, but I never, he behaves, right? He's not behaving right now. He never misbehaves this way. He never jumps up on anyone. He goes, you must be giving off some kind of a vibe, He goes, because this dog doesn't do that. He's well trained. He doesn't do that, and the dog's just like got its tongue hanging out and wagging its tail and still jumping around on me. And I told him, yeah, something happened a long time ago, and horses, dogs, cats, anything, pets, even where people say, hey, they bite, watch out, that dog bites. It'll be over there licking my face, and I'm petting it. It's like, well, thanks for telling me after, I'm over here letting it lick my face and stuff. But only, a lot of things changed. And even that is something that changed. Even little kids, it's really weird. You walk through the grocery store and somebody will have their little 1-year-old or 2-3-year-old toddler riding in the cart, and I'll look over, as you're walking, you're just scanning everyone. I do. It's a habit from back in the day when I had to watch my back so much. So I'm always scanning, and I'll lock eyes with these little kids, and then they smile, and then they even, as they go by, I look back, and they're turning to look at me, and they smile when I look at them, and they're waving at me and saying hi, and the parents are looking at me all weird. I try to avoid that because I don't like to make parents nervous, and it makes me nervous, but it's really weird how that, mostly little kids though, not adults or anything, that doesn't work. I don't know why.
Hasn't it been said, however, sometimes that children and animals are more open than adults to a lot of things that apparently are out there in the ozone to be sensed, seen, heard, etc. But by the time we get to be adults, absent extenuating circumstances, these are things that generally don't affect us.
That makes me think, I think about this a lot, because it's a daily thing with me, and it's almost like normal now to me. Like, it was abnormal, but now it's normal. But only I think we all have it. Only I have a feeling our schools and culture, they train it out of us. They start. It starts really when you're young, and they start telling you, oh no, that's you can't do that. So you're almost taught not to have that. And I think we really were born with it, and it takes some kind of jolting experience to wake it up in you, like what happened to me or something. And I've researched that, and a lot of people that die and come back or have a near-death thing, they all come back like that, or a lot of them. And then you're right, the little kids, like when we do investigations at haunted houses, you watch the animals and the little kids, and they'll be looking in the direction of where I'm getting the feeling of where I should be looking as well, and I realize it's almost 100% on that.
I think a great deal of what you do and what you sense and your involvement, your interest and involvement in the paranormal things, unexplained, etc., does have a great deal to do. Jan McKillop mentions in chat, I first read about NDE's near-death experiences in Dr. Raymond Moody's books in the 1970s, but there isn't anybody. Now, I haven't come close to that. I mean, I've come through some butt-puckering situations, but I have not been injured in such a fashion. And yet I've had my own experiences in a limited way. You're open and available for sensing some other things because of your circumstances that otherwise perhaps other people would not. I still am a big believer that there's a great deal of our brains that are historically untapped, and that if we can somehow manage to tap into a lot of these things, it would expand our consciousness and knowledge. Otherwise, how is it that we can explain 5-year-olds that can read music and play concertos, or individuals that can hear colors, or individuals that can see in different spectrums, or folks who are incredible engineers and incredibly talented and intelligent at 10 or 11. There's a wide range of people and experiences funneled through the brain, and which leads me to believe that sometime, we may find out exactly what our real potential is, and we get stuck into the mundane. In the meantime, life happens.
Well, I was kind of weird like that, like what you're talking about. When I was young, I had a photographic memory. I don't have it since the accident or the occurrence. I don't have that anymore, and I lose like words, and I can't. I have a harder time like remembering things after that accident. But before that, as a kid, I could read 1,200 words a minute, and we're talking about the first grade, and understand what I'm reading. And I read every book in the library, the school library. And I mean, like, I did weird stuff like that, and I wanted to be a pilot, and everybody said you could be. They invited me in Mensa when I was 11.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I had a weird childhood, and I had to actually think dumb, which is kind of. My brothers and sisters would get mad and say, they would tell on me and say, he's making me feel stupid, I would get in trouble, So I started having to like use different words and think about what I was going to say before I say it, or not say it at all, just to even make the adults not feel so uncomfortable, So that I was kind of like that. I picked up the guitar and started playing it, and pretty decently. I picked up leather crafting, like real easy, and this is a truth, and you might get this because you were in law enforcement, but I was raised in law enforcement. My family were all sheriffs and, all the different law enforcement, or they're Marines or, MPs, whatever. So, I mean, they all started in the Marines, and then they came out, and then they're all in law enforcement. But I made all their holsters, their key ring holders, the handcuff holders, belts, everything with the basket weave. I mean, I made all that stuff. I was like 12 years old, and I was selling it to the sheriffs and even the police department. I mean, people would be like, "Oh man, that's killer, all hand carved stuff." I mean, a lot of those, like we were talking earlier about the quick draw rig.
Mm-hmm.
I made all kinds of quick draw holsters and purses and stuff like that for the wives. I mean, I loved it. I was telling my wife I want to get back into it because I could lose myself in there. When you're in a lot of pain, you could get into something and lose yourself, and you don't feel the pain. They have to come and actually shake you a little bit or tap you to break you out of the trance you're in while you're doing these things.
One of the things that I've said about Alan Thomas, and people who have met Alan know this to be true, there are very few folks that you will come to meet or get to know who are as clear and honest and good and forthright as Alan Thomas. Now, he mentioned earlier, and we'll talk about this, we're going to get to the UFO stuff because of the most recent revelations, but he mentioned that he had a memory, a great recall. That's called an eidetic memory, and I have come across two people who have memories like that. One of them was my lieutenant who was in homicide. She could recall names, dates of birth, and faces of individuals who had been suspects from cases long, long ago. You could never pull anything across on her. She would remember everything. And I'm guessing that in your lives, folks, you probably have come across individuals similar to that in terms of you wonder, how did they do that? How did they think that? And
I wish I could teach it.
Wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great to allow people to accomplish a fraction of what we all think that our brains are capable of? But anyway, having said that, I enjoy having Alan on the show because he is a wealth of knowledge, has had a wild, crazy life, including, having passed away on the OR table a couple of times. And he is susceptible to things that I am not. Now, my wife, Mrs. BZ, is an individual who is kind of similar to that. She's never had the dying on the table experience, but she is open and has seen and experienced a lot of things. I have been historically the quintessential skeptic until I began to experience a few things by myself. That having been said, Alan, you've done many, many, many more things than I have. And I want to eventually transition over. Let's see, what do I have? I got about another 4 minutes before the bottom of the hour break. After we come back from the break, I'd like to go to UFOs. But in the meantime, if you ever meet Alan Thomas, or oh God, stop. Where are my manners? Number one, thanks to Alan for being in chat. Thanks to Simone for being in chat. Thanks to Jan McKillop for being in chat. Thanks to two masked viewers who I will not unmask, who are in chat. And Alan Thomas, my apologies to you. You have a show, and I should have asked you this earlier. You have a show that you have done before and may be coming back called the Squatch Zone. So if people are interested in that, which is involves some paranormal stuff, but mostly Sasquatch, where can people go to find that, or do perhaps a little background on you and find out who you are?
Well, where this all comes, the Squatch Zone is one of the things that, like, I picked up, like I was talking about leather, this, that. In the 80s, I was in law enforcement, and I worked weekends. I was like raising a family, so I was doing anything for money. You know what I mean? Like anything. And so I was in law enforcement part-time, and not hired full-time yet, and I was working security on the weekends, and I saw a camera, and I didn't know anything about photography, and I saw a camera, and it was the very first, I guess, prosumer type video camera, and it was like $1,500 and a tape deck, and my wife about kicked my ass for buying it, And I picked that up, and I started doing. I was raising foster kids and our own kids, so we had 6 kids, and I started doing birthday parties and memorable moments, and camp outs and whatever we were doing, special events and things, and just for the family. And then extended family would come over with their kids, cousins and brothers and sisters and stuff. And they're like, hey, that is so cool. Can you do that for us? Like, sure, let me know when your birthday party is. I'll go do it. And then that went from, they had friends there. Hey, man, that is really cool. So I started charging people. And I went hot air ballooning. I started doing TV commercials. I traveled around the world with the camera, and I did that for about a decade, and most of it part-time. Then I got away from it. And then when I picked up again with Jeff, he was doing that show. And prior to that, in my career that I was in the computer thing, I learned the computers all on my own, no schooling or anything like that. I became the director of the computer department of the casino and was doing the, big servers and all this stuff. Well, when I got with Jeff, all that stuff came together again, all the audio and the video, and the computers are a big part of it because that's how it is today. And so I've been doing my Squatch Zone channel. I have that one, and I just started another one. I'm trying to develop it right now. It's called Radio Detective, and it's a retired detective. He passed away, a good friend of mine. And his wife, he did a nationally syndicated show about guns and politics and stuff like that, and all the things I'm interested in. So he has like 1,500 shows, 3 hours long, and I'm trying to get them all on from the cassette tape to MP3s. And I'm also putting them on YouTube. That's called the Radio Detective. I haven't done much there because I've been busy at the Squatch Zone, still doing that one. So like most everything you're going to see lately is Squatch Zone. Then I bought a drone, and they have this law where you can't make money with your drone. Like
what?
Not even a monetized.
What? Stop right there. Okay, I'll tell you what. No, I got to go to a break. Folks,
okay,
we're talking to Alan Thomas. I love having Alan Thomas on the show. He is a Sasquatch paranormal UFO and all things unexplained investigator and researcher. We're going to get to UFOs after the break, and I will continue talking to Alan Thomas about the Squatch Zone and what he's done with that, and about drones. I want to hear about the thing about drones. I certainly wasn't expecting that at all. So I want to go to a break. When we come back, I'll continue to talk to Alan Thomas, and then I want to throw out the number for anybody to call. Now, people generally don't call. I get it. You don't want to be seen as somebody that, thinks about UFOs, tinfoil, etc., all of that. I'll tell you some of my experiences. Alan will tell you some of his, and if you want to call, we will go ahead and do that as well. Alan, let me ask you this before I'm long on the break, 2 minutes after, but if need be, are you available for the full 2 hours of the show, sir?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Beautiful. I got Alan for 2 hours. Shh, don't tell him that I conjured him to do it. We're going to take a break right now. I'll be right back after this. Okay?
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, are you guys listening? This is Shannon. from Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM on SHR Media. I know you've been wondering where we are and what's been going on. Well, folks, that's right. We're back. So please join us 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday on SHR Media, on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, and Facebook Live at 11 a.m. on Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM at Facebook. You don't want to miss a minute. We've got lots of guests, lots of segments, and lots of interesting things. And let's face it, there's nowhere for you to go, so you might as well tune in. Again, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. We're back live on the air on SHR Media, 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday, audio and Facebook Live, audio and video. Yes, we are going to do video. Facebook Live, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. Hope to see you soon.
Want to make an immediate difference in the life of a critically ill child? You have the ability to do that right now. Make a donation to Dream Makers for Life, the organization that restores dreams to seriously ill children and their families. You can sponsor a dream pack for a child, which contains a clear PVC backpack, a dry erase board adventure coloring book, a journal, and dry erase markers to inspire a critically ill child to envision a future adventure and hope. Want to become a dream maker for life yourself? Go to dreamforlife.org. That's dreamforlife.org. Help a child. Help a family. There is always hope.
Unleashed Jeremy Hansen, the most explosive pro-American podcast on the planet. Pro-MAGA, pro-Trump, pro-conservative. Come join the resistance. Fight for what really matters in America. 5 p.m. Central on UJHLive.com, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Pandora, or MAGAbook.com. Come join the resistance and fight for America. Unleashed Jeremy Hansen.
Do you value yourself, your family, your friends? Want to know more about how to survive, thrive, and stay alive in these dynamic times? Listen to Around the Campfire with Kate, Thursday nights and Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Central, only on PSN TV. That's Around the Campfire with Kate. News that nobody in the MSM wants to report. Remember, train hard, train smart to survive, thrive, and stay alive.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we are back. Thanks for being here tonight. I greatly appreciate it. I'm BZ, the Bloviating Zeppelin. You're listening to the Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show live and direct on the SHR Media Network. If you're listening to me on SHR, go to shrmedia.com. You can go to the chat room. On the face page, go to Listen Live and Chat. Click on that little tab on the face page, shrmedia.com, and you will be put into the chat room. A lot of great people in the chat room right now. Simone, Alan, Jan, 2 viewers. Some people like to be anonymous. That's okay, too. Let me throw this out here right now. If anybody wants to call, and you don't have to give your name, that is absolutely immaterial. The number is 575-208-4481. 575-208-4481. Because tonight, we're talking to Alan Thomas. And he's going to be here for the entire 2 hours of the show. I explained in the first half hour a little bit about Alan. He is a researcher and an investigator into the paranormal, Sasquatch, UFOs, the unexplained. And he's going to be here for the entire 2 hours. And again, you don't have to give your name, but if you have had an experience with any of this, give us a call, 575-208-4481, and I will put you on. We'll talk about some things, and if you have anything that you'd like to say, well, shoot. We will get you on the air, and you can talk about whatever kind of an experience you have had. In the meantime, I wanted to talk to Alan because before the show, he had said that you have some new stuff, some news for tonight about how some things seem to be changing. And I thought, well, that sounds really cool. And when you're talking about things, you're talking about stuff in the sort of unexplained universe, about how things are getting bigger and more extensive, etc. So is there anything that makes you say, Alan Thomas, or posit, why is it that things are getting kind of, they're becoming more intense these days?
You know, I know a lot of people, you know, they don't agree with what I'm about to say, but I have researched this backwards and forwards, up and down, in and out, and all the research that I find, or what I've come to probably in the last 3 years, and I'm not the only one that's come to this, is a lot of what we're seeing in the news, the good versus the evil. I mean, we're absolutely seeing that right now. And it's not politics anymore. It is, it's good versus evil is what it is. That's what we're seeing. And we have to get involved if we're going to win, because it's spilling over the paranormal, or the veil that holds back all this, these things that what everyone used to think was separate entity type things, like UFOs came from another planet, you know, and Bigfoot, you know, he was here before the Indians were here, and all this kind of stuff, you know, and they're all connected. The good and the evil, it's all connected. And I'm afraid that I have to tell you that the UFOs are actually probably the fallen ones. And if you do your research, you'll like go back to Genesis 6 in the Bible and start reading about how these things were there then, right, in Adam's day, Adam and Eve's day, and what they did on the earth. And we're seeing it play out today again in our time. Only you go forward into the Bible and you start finding where there's these incursions into our reality from these supernatural beings, and it's a good and evil type fight. And for some reason, they're fighting over our earth and us. And that part I haven't figured out what the big deal is, but for some reason, that's what it turns out to be. And we're watching the battle be set up right now. And now that, you know, the government's come out and said that, like a couple of months ago, you know, here in this report, they just said they did a little study of a few years, right? I didn't understand that part. Like all my friends that do like James Fox and everybody, they've been researching this stuff for years, like all the way from the crash in 1947 at Roswell and beyond, really. And then the government comes out with their 9-page report or whatever it is, you know, 6 to 9 pages, and says, oh, you know, they can't explain it. They don't know what it is at all. And it's like, what? When a couple of months ago, they came out and they actually said they have off-world ships. Okay, so if they have off-world ships, they know what's going on, right? This is like they're lying to us. This is a big lie. But since that came out, the videos are like, you could go on YouTube and type in, you know, the month, June, and put UFO sighting, and you're going to get overwhelmed with it. They're off the hook. I mean, it's just crazy. Big ones, little ones, all kinds of them. Like, which ones are, now the question is, which ones are ours and which ones are theirs, and which ones are theirs that we control? You know what I mean? Like, because we have some of them. So, you know, are we using them?
Well, those are all some great questions. And I'm sorry, Alan, I interrupted you. What? I've got a caller on the line here, and this caller's been kind enough to wait for a couple of minutes. So, caller, can you tell us who you are? You don't have to. You don't have to identify yourself. But if you have an experience or an adventure that you'd like to tell us about, please, you're on right now.
Okay, hi. Thank you, BZ. Hi, Alan. This is Simone. You know, I want to follow up on some things. Hi. I want to follow up on some things that you said about the fallen or the watchers from the Bible. So remember that those of you that read the Bible, and I'm no expert on it, you know, God said that there was going to be a time when he was going to be dealing with all of them. And so I think what they're trying to do is extend the time, because if you know that God is right, and we do, but if you're a fallen or a watcher and you know what the end is going to be because God is always right, then you know what your fate is going to be. And so why wouldn't you do everything you can to delay that fate? And so all the controlling of the governments and the games they play and the strings that they pull is all delay tactics, I think, because they don't want to have to deal with the end that's going to happen to them. Are you following kind of what I'm saying?
That's exactly what I think. You know, and actually, like, they're actually maybe even believing they could win. You know, so because they're you have to understand they're only a third of them came. Okay, a third of them fell, or whatever you want to call it. So they're already at numbers wise, at a numbers game, they're already at a disadvantage. So they have to win over, or they have to corrupt humans to get them on their side, so that their numbers increase, so that, you know, they even the odds. Otherwise, they're really going to lose. They're going to lose anyways. But, you know, they think they might win, maybe. You know, especially when you add Sasquatch. You know.
Yeah. So to add a little bit more to that about how the veil is getting thinner, at work today, one of my colleagues from Southern California came up to deliver some equipment, and we had lunch together. And he's a good Christian guy, and he had told me that previously, before even today, that a couple of months ago, he lives in Southern California in Riverside County, and his wife, they have 2 young children, and the kids were in bed. So he and his wife were watching TV, and out of the corner of their eye, they saw movement, because they looked through the sliding glass door. They had curtains drawn, and the light in the patio. They saw something really weird and unusual, tall, kind of. He described it. I mean, to me, it kind of sounded like a dog man or something like that. He didn't know what that term was. He just said it was tall, it was muscular, it was slender, like in its legs. It did not look natural, and it walked next to his sliding glass door, so the light reflected the shadow of this thing. And so he was former law enforcement, so he went and got his firearm, and because, you know, what is this? And it's tall. He said it was really tall because he's got a 6-foot sliding door. This thing was taller than the door. And so he went out with his firearm and his flashlight, and he looked around, and then he looked on the roof, because that's the only place where that thing could have been. And he felt darkness and fear, so he went in, and him and his wife started praying. And he told me that story, you know, a couple months ago when it happened to him, and I agreed with him that it was something lurking there for him. Today, when I had lunch with him, he told me that his sister, just this past weekend, had a weird thing happen. She's also in Southern California, and she has one of those like doorbell things that is also a camera, so you can monitor it from your phone.
Yeah,
or,
like Ring.
Someplace. Yeah, like that. Yeah, that's what she has. And so something was drawing her attention to look at her little Ring viewer screen, and so when she looked, the sidewalk in front of her house had like a dark puddle, like black, and this puddle kept getting bigger and bigger, and then it slithered as a puddle. It slithered up the steps to her doorstep, and it started to form into something because she was looking at it through her Ring camera thing. And so she called out the name of Jesus and cast him away and started praying. And as soon as she said Jesus' name, the thing just vaporized and disappeared. And this just happened to her last weekend, and she was afraid to tell her brother for fear that he would laugh at her or something. So then he told her his story. So to back up what you're saying, Alan, that the veil is getting thinner and the fight is on, I truly believe it is. I truly believe that we need to be praying more. We need to be prayer warriors. And because, when all of us were born, our names were in the book of life. And you have to actually deny Jesus to get your name erased from the book of life. And I think that's what you're talking about, where the other side's trying to build their numbers. They're trying to get people to deny Christ. They're trying to get people to deny God so that they can increase their numbers. Because as you get your name erased from the book of life, you're on the other side, right? You got to pick sides.
Well, actually, we're born and we're not in the book of life. But only we're innocent. Okay, when you're little, you're innocent. You can't make a decision to follow Christ, right? So you're like by default his until you come of age of where you can make that decision. Then your life course that you set will either take you with him in your life or you will lose that. Like with me, I didn't have it at all. We did not go to church. We didn't know anything. I actually felt special and went in my closet at 10 years old and started reading a New Testament somebody gave me. And I thought God wanted to use me. And I don't know why. But only I learned all that stuff. And I've stuck with it. And I still don't go to church. But I am steadily talking to Jesus and stuff. Because once you go over to the other side and you come back, you realize that's real. This is real. There's a fight. And it's happening right now, and we're watching it on the news happen. The news is part of it. They're the misinformation part. I mean, they're giving everybody misinformation and a narrative that is leading them off the truth. And then we have the truth and it can't be told because they're immediately censoring it. So the people that are hearing the regular news, they will not hear the other side because it's being censored immediately off of every social media, everything. Like scrubbed. It's terrible.
So, Simone, do you have any other observations for Alan?
No, I just wanted to support him in what he was saying because, even today, there was a real example. I was shocked, and I supported my friend and said, we need to pray more. We need to pray more, and you need to protect your family, and you do that by praying and believing in God, and become a prayer warrior.
There's power there. Thank you for that, because there's power there. That is what we need.
Simone, have you had any of your own experiences? Now, we're going to transition into UFOs here in a little bit, but have you had any of your own experiences regarding, say, UFOs or of that nature?
So, yeah. So, I was born and raised in Fresno and to a Catholic Hispanic family. So, we were like super religious, right? We did go to church and got confirmed and all that kind of stuff. And so there were weird things going on in our home. And I remember when I was about 12, my sister and I slept in the back bedroom, and we didn't have a hallway. It was like bedroom to bedroom to bedroom. So the house was like an O, and the bottom part of the O kind of was the bathroom, right? So I would go from my bedroom to my brother's bedroom and hang a right, and I'd be in the bathroom. And this experience broke me of going potty in the middle of the night. So the house had a wood floor, and when I stepped on a step, it would creak. And normally I didn't care because, my brother is a year and a half older than me, and I didn't care. And I would go in and I'd turn on the bathroom light, and he'd get upset because, the light got in his eyes, and I didn't care because, I was the sister. But this one night, I remember, and it could have been like at 2. I didn't notice what time it was, but it was dark. And how it is like when it snows, it's like preternaturally silent. It's a weird kind of quiet. And that's the way it was. I woke up and it was that kind of quiet. And I thought that was weird. And it was so weird to me that instead of stepping on the creaky stairs, I stepped over the stair so as not to make noise because I wanted to be quiet, which was weird for my behavior, right? And then I reached my hand around the wall to flip on the light because I was just going to step in and close the door so as not to bother my brother who's sleeping. And I flipped on the light, and right there in front of me, and this is a little bathroom. I mean, this bathroom was as wide as the bathtub, right? Right there standing in front of me, my mouth dropped open and its mouth dropped open. It was something that was about 3.5 foot high. It was grayish, whitish in color. It had big eyes. And I remember I didn't stare at the eyes. I remember being drawn to its mouth, and its mouth was just a little line. And then I looked down past its mouth. It had a small chin, and then it was wearing like this silvery, very soft fabric. It had like a Nehru collar. Because I remember looking at it going, wow, a Nehru collar. And as I looked down, its legs looked kind of like they wouldn't support the weight of the body. And so I never really looked at its eyes. By the time I got to its feet, I realized that wasn't normal, what I was looking at. And I turned and I jumped on my brother's bed, and he's asleep. And I heard the thing scurry the other direction. And I was straddling my brother, and I was grabbing him and shaking him, grabbing him by his shoulders, and I was screaming out loud, wake up, and nobody woke up. And then the next thing I knew, I woke up in my bed the next morning.
Wow. That sounds like all the stories that I'm hearing now. That's happening a lot now, a lot. And the other weird thing that happened to me is and I'm going to get a little personal here, but I didn't start my periods until I was 18 years old, which is a long time because most girls start at 12, and I didn't start till I was 18. And my entire life as an adult, women have ovary on each side of their hip, right? And what happens is every month an ovary kicks out an egg, and it alternates. One month it's the left side, the next time it's the right side. My periods were irregular, and I think it's because I would only have a period every other month. And I didn't think anything of it at the time, but as I got older, it occurred to me that one of my ovaries wasn't firing eggs, which is why only one side was working. So it almost makes me wonder if my eggs weren't harvested. I don't remember being abducted. I don't have any memories of anything like that other than what I just described, and the fact that only one of my ovaries fired my entire adult life. It was every other month, which was kind of convenient because who wants that? But yeah, weird. Yeah. Wow. Well, that just backs up some of my research that I've been doing on like the Bigfoot and the aliens. Like they need like a container body. So they're harvesting genetics off of humans, and they do it by abducting. And like I've talked to several people just in the last month that they normally would not talk about it, and they knew what I was up to and everything, but then they started telling me stories of when, that they saw a UFO, and the next thing they knew, they were waking up. And one time they were in the car and they saw the UFO, and they pulled over in a certain parking lot that they, everybody, there was like 5 people in the car. All of them were looking at the UFO. The next thing they know, they're a mile down the road going the other direction and not in the parking lot. We're on the side of the road, and they're all waking up. I mean, this is happening right now. And then the thing about the silence, the Bigfooters, not only us, but I mean, I'm hooked up with a lot of Bigfooters now, and people go into the woods, and now it's almost becoming a thing that when you hear everything stop, right? No bugs, no crickets, no birds, no any sounds whatsoever. I mean, it's almost like too quiet. You know what I mean? Like really, really quiet. That usually follows an encounter with the Bigfoot, like a big boulder flying out, or you actually get a visual, or they growl or scream at you. And so now when everybody knows, when you happen into this, in fact, some people have even seen portals open, like a round circle will open on the trail in front of them. It'll get real quiet and they can't hear the creek or anything. And then all of a sudden this portal opens and out steps a Bigfoot out of this thing.
I got about a minute before the top of the hour break. And then we're talking to Alan Thomas, and Simone is on the phone. Thank you, Simone, for calling in. After the break, when we come back, I want to get specifically into UFOs with Alan Thomas and tell everybody that you can do the same thing that Simone has done. Simone, I want to thank you very much for being bold enough to be here. A lot of people will talk, I can't even say a lot of people. Some people will talk to others one-on-one about an experience they may have had. But to have someone who is courageous enough to get on the telephone and tell others about their experience is still, even in 2021, kind of unusual. So I'm hurling down the gauntlet, folks. You can be like Simone as well. And Alan has already regaled any number of tales about what has happened to him. I've had some events occur to me. When we come back after the break, I would like to see if I can go specifically into the report, because people seem to be of two camps about this report. The one camp is, oh my God, the revelations are astounding. And the other camp is, you know what? Not so much, not really.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
It is he that is me, bringing perspective from across the sea. Join me, Jack Alexander, 4 days a week for the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast, as I take a unique outsider's look at the news and issues affecting life and liberty here in the USA. I'll show you what the mainstream media refuses to. Politics, border security, defense, healthcare, travel, nothing is off limits. Catch the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast each Monday to Thursday on Facebook, YouTube, and everywhere good podcasts can be found. Also, check out the website, www.jackalexanderexperiment.com.
Come listen to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, Tuesday and Thursday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, for the best in late-night conservatarian wireless talk radio at shrmedia.com. Raised as a free-range child with dirt and freedom, BZ is broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. Jump into our plush, sumptuous, palatial, and resplendent chat room at shrmedia.com. Now, with 18% more umbrage and 20% more bulbosity than previous shows, and with delicious Liberty additives. Remember, BZ realizes that with great beard comes great responsibility. No chinchillas were harmed, embarrassed, or the focus of any sarcasm whatsoever in the making of this ad.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
After 6 years covering terror and corruption, the Unpleasant Blind Guy is making a change. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker and YouTube through SHR Media and on the Western Free Radio Network as I team up with Jeff Mitchell, host of the English Defense Elite radio show on blogtalkradio.com. Check show pages for airtimes. It's the Unpleasant Blind Guy.
On EBL Radio.
There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we are back. I'm BZ, the bloviating Zeppelin, one each, right here at shrmedia.com in the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, where I am broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, always spelled with a K. I used to be 2 miles east of the locus of evil on the entire left coast, the Bill Mill, the belly of the beast, 10th and L Streets downtown, Sacramento's capital, but I have since relocated because that studio is no more, as they say. In the meantime, we're speaking to Alan Thomas, who has been kind enough to be here, to acquiesce to be here for the entire hour. What I'd like to do now is transition over into UFOs. This report came out. People were waiting for it with bated breath. Who knows? Mackerel, herring, cod, I'm not sure, but the breath was bated. And I looked at it, and I have a copy in here. Actually, about, let's see, where is it? There it is. And I looked at it, and I went, I'm not impressed. Alan Thomas, did you read it, and were you impressed?
I was actually pissed that they think we're that stupid.
Okay. I want to play a cut, which is about 4 minutes, with one view, and then when I come back, Alan Thomas, I'd like your opinion of this. And then what I'm going to do is something that very few have, because I have the time to do it, is I'm going to read portions of this report that I suspect not very many people have even read themselves.
Right, well, the highly anticipated UFO report released by the government Friday, leaving many unsatisfied. The classified threat assessment giving no explanation for more than 100 sightings from the past 2 decades. The report suggesting the sightings could be the result of sensor errors, but my next guest is someone who's witnessed and captured UFOs on camera. So what does he think of the reports? Joining me now, documentary filmmaker Jeremy Corbell. Jeremy, great to have you with us. I know everybody wanted to know, they were going to find out if there were Martians out there, whatever. You probably knew better than to expect that.
Right, but the report did say more than people really understand. Look, I'm encouraged by the general disappointment by the public on what was in the report because it indicates a curiosity that people have about the UFO topic. The report clearly indicates a need for proper research and development into the UFO study. This is the first time the American government has ever taken this position, and it's high time that they have. This was a failure in intelligence, but it's an acknowledged failure in intelligence. And so this is so important. It is time to initiate a broad spectrum, multidisciplinary, multi-agency project that is comparable in size and scope to the Manhattan Project about UFOs. We have craft. We don't know where they come from, but they're flying with impunity in our restricted airspace.
Yeah, and part of the report says this. Some of these events that they witnessed appear to remain stationary in winds aloft, move against the wind, maneuver abruptly, or move at considerable speed without discernible means of propulsion. I have talked to someone inside the military who has seen and tracked some of these and said, we do not have technology. I would rather think it was aliens or something from outer space than the Russians or the Chinese, but we don't know, and there's nothing to explain what I've seen.
Right. UFOs act in ways that are at least 1,000 years beyond our next generation technology. Not only do they go beyond hypersonic, but they have endurance capability. They have cloaking capability. So this is a sea change in policy where the American public is being heard, and they are now looking into the UFO topic in a way that is pertinent and should have been done a long time ago. They're handling the UFO mystery better now. They're eliminating the stigma, eliminating the ridicule. And to be clear, look, I released Pentagon confirmed Navy videos that show UFOs swarming our Navy ships. And I'm not done. I'm releasing another piece tomorrow. So more information is coming out no matter what that report says, but I'm happy and I'm proud of our government for handling the UFO topic differently now.
Mm-hmm. Can you give us any kind of tease what we might learn tomorrow? What else you have to come?
Just watch my social media. It will be everywhere by the end of the day tomorrow.
And that was that. I'm going to get into the report itself because I have a copy sitting right here in front of me in PDF. Alan Thomas, you said that you were absolutely underwhelmed. Why is that?
Well, they have years of sitting on technology that they captured or shot down or given to them, traded for maybe humans, or something. And they have all this stuff, and when they probably could give us free energy, so where we could get off the gas thing, and I know that would break them because that's how they make their money. So they'll never ever give us anything for free. But they could at least start telling the truth, and that they're not telling the truth.
Okay, so the truth is that a lot of people are looking at this in any number of ways. First, that it has reached the mainstream. If you've got Tucker Carlson talking about it on Fox, there are still a horde of people out there who are saying, you crazy nut jobs that have anything to do with UFOs, you're not on this planet. There is no real such thing, and if you try to broach the topic with individuals, you're not of your own mind. And yet, we have audio and video of, for example, Navy pilots coming across these things after the Pentagon declassified 3 UFO videos taken by actual U.S. Navy pilots.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude.
So they have footage that shows unidentified objects flying at high speeds throughout the Earth's atmosphere. And all of these flying objects are unidentified to this day. So I guess the declassification is meant to clear up any kind of public misconception about that. The one video that was released was in 2004, and the other 2 were released in 2015. And then of all places, they were leaked to the New York Times in 2017, and it just kind of took a life of its own after that. I have seen UFOs. You have seen UFOs. The conclusions that I have reached do not come anywhere near the fact that I've concluded they're aliens. I saw a UFO, and it was literally that. The other 4 I saw as well. It was unidentified. It was flying. It was in the air. And it was an object. UFOs over the years have kind of gotten a bad rap. Anybody that says anything about a UFO, well, you're a nutter. So now they decided to change from UFOs to UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon. What's the same stuff? But if you've looked up to the skies and the skies are busy every night, just go out there and look, there are 5 characteristics of what they call a UFO, of a typical UFO sighting. These were accurate in terms of what I've seen. Could I conclude their nature? Of course not. But these all were concomitant with what I saw. Characteristic 1, an anti-gravity propulsion system. There has to be an engine, but it's not seen. Flight surfaces, but they're not seen. Characteristic number 2, instantaneous acceleration. I've seen a couple of instances where something in the sky took off at a rapid rate, so rapid that it had a human being been inside, knowing what I know about the laws of gravity, weight transfer, etc., no human could survive anything like that. The third characteristic, hypersonic velocity, incredible speeds. The fourth characteristic, low observability. And then characteristic number 5 is a trans-medium traveling. That means that these things can travel from space to the ground, ground into space, air into sea, and like that. So I have seen things that I cannot explain that I would classify as UFOs, but there's no way that I can say that I know exactly where these came from. So Alan Thomas, on those notes, have you seen anything in the air that kind of correspond to those 5 elements of a UFO sighting?
Oh, yeah. And a little bit more. Like, we were looking at something with our eyes, put the camera up, and the camera couldn't see it. At all.
Okay.
And then when we put the camera down, then you could see it again. And then we've come across where you couldn't see it with your eyes, but when you turn on the IR on the infrared on the camera, then you could see it. Okay, but the camera couldn't see it without the IR, and you couldn't see it. But as soon as you turn on the infrared, bam, there it is. And you could turn it off and on and off and on and watch it go in and out, in and out. I mean, like, it's like that. And I don't know. It's something you can't explain. But I don't think they came from outer space. I think they're always here. Because when you start researching it, there's like carvings of them in South America from eons, thousands of years ago. They probably aren't from another planet. They've been here. They've been here a long time, and I think they find the Germans started it. They started looking for the technology, and then the Americans picked up right at the end of the war and got all the Germans over here, scientists and everything, and they just kept on going.
Operation Paperclip.
Yeah, and they know. Okay, they know. They said they were going to share with us and tell us, when they said they have off-world ships, they got to know more than what they put in that report. Just even if they just showed a picture of those, come on. They could show a picture of those, right? I would think.
I'm going to read from the executive summary. This was produced in PDF, and this is available for anybody to go look. If you're expecting a 100 to 200 to 300 to 1,000 page report issued, then you would be sorely mistaken. Now, it's unclassified. It comes from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the DNI, and it's titled Preliminary Assessment Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, because that sounds better than UFO. So again, the UAPs. This was released on June 25th, just a couple of days ago. The first, second page, third page is scope and assumptions. Really doesn't tell you much. You have to go to the executive summary in the next page. The limited amount of high-quality reporting on unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, same thing as a UFO, folks, they just changed the acronym, hampers our ability to draw firm conclusions about the nature or intent of UAP. The UAPTF, Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, considered a range of information on UAP described in U.S. military and IC intelligence community reporting, but because the reporting lacked sufficient specificity, ultimately recognized that a unique tailored reporting process was required to provide sufficient data for analysis of UAP events. But this started long ago. This is me coming in extemporaneously. This started with J. Allen Hynek, who was tasked for a while to coordinate with the U.S. Air Force with regard to UFOs. And even though he was tasked with working with the Air Force, he was stymied along the way, which generally began in 1947 with Roswell. There are any number of theories about Roswell. Go look at those things. There are numerous books written about that. They kept the scope of this investigation pretty tight. They wrote, as a result, the UAPTF concentrated its review on reports that occurred between 2004 and 2021, the majority of which are a result of this new tailored process to better capture UAP events through formalized reporting. Stop. Here's what I think happened. Alan Thomas, I'd like you to weigh in after I expound here. Expound in an expanding fashion, like my nature. In 2004, some of these videos from military pilots were leaked and were exposed. They came out to the general public. There was no real way to explain them except that our professional military pilots somehow came in contact with something that flew that they can't explain. Otherwise, I believe firmly, had these videos not been exposed, or had these pilots not spoken later on about some of these things, we would never know to this day. They'd just be shoved aside in some closet somewhere, never to be considered or thought of again until and if something equally as large, if not larger, came to a public venue. So I think the only reason that this report came out, or anything, or the military or the government is even remotely interested in talking about this stuff, is because it got out and they couldn't really deny it because, damn it, there it is on video. Alan Thomas?
Well, I tend to agree with you a little bit right there.
Okay.
But I actually think there's a more nefarious plan, and they're going to roll this out, and these things, okay, they're going to start off by, I guess, getting everybody's little toe wet with just the information, kind of like breaking the ice or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
But then they're going to start as this deep state, or whatever you want to call them. As they roll along, they're going to bring this out as our creators, and they're going to start. These things are going to start coming into the skies more. We're going to start seeing more, and they're going to say, "Oh, this is forcing us to, tell the truth. So we're going to tell the truth now. Meet your maker," type thing. And I think that's where we're headed to on this.
Okay, when you say meet your maker, can you expand on that a little bit? What are you talking about?
They're going to say that they did all the research in the digs in Egypt and everywhere, and they found evidence in South America and all this stuff. And they also had contact with them, but they couldn't tell anyone. And they seeded mankind onto the earth, and everybody's going to buy that. I mean, a lot of people oh yeah, hey, that sounds right. We were seeded by these things that can, put you to sleep. Like there was this is a UFO report. Okay, a guy's flying in his plane with his family, and the guy is a kid that's relating this to me, and they're flying along, and a giant ship comes up and is now flying in formation with them. where everyone in the plane can see it. Huge, huge, huge craft. And a door opens up, and a bunch of smaller crafts that are still bigger than their airplane come out and surround the airplane. Okay, now they have a house with a hangar, you know, and they live on a runway, that like a private little runway thing. That's the last thing they remember, is being surrounded. They woke up in their house. The plane was parked in its little, you know, garage, and they have no idea how that all happened. The whole family. And so they know, these guys know that our government, and so does some of the other governments, they know about this. They're gonna just like they're rolling out information on everything else, they're holding back, and they're going to use it to their advantage. And I have a feeling that advantage is to sway public opinion to thinking that they seeded the earth and this is where we came from, right? They are the ones that brought human race to America. And it's disconcerting to me, man. I've been doing research on this a long, long, long time, and that's how I'm so mad about the report. It's like they're doing it intentionally. They could have just came out with it with pictures of the craft that they have. It doesn't even have to be good pictures. They already admitted they have them. You know, they know. They're just this is like Bull Roney saying that they're just picking out these few years right here of when these videos were released. You know, that they're just using it to their advantage. They're stalling, or they're making time to when they're going to really roll it out. And it's not going to be what everybody thinks either. It's not going to be, oh, the UFOs came from Mars or whatever. It's going to be meet your daddy, you know, meet who brought us onto the earth, who seeded the planet. Watch.
And you think that's incorrect?
No, I think it's totally incorrect. Yeah, what I was talking about earlier about they need numbers, right? They're at a disadvantage against the good side because there's only a third of them. So now they're going to win over a whole bunch of people and have them believe that they are the ones. So now most of the population that doesn't want to hear the word Jesus or anything like that, they're gonna jump on that and grab it and hold on like no tomorrow.
So you're saying it's going to be more literal than subjective, more objective than subjective.
Right.
Okay. It's an interesting time now to make a reference to Joseph Allen Hynek that I spoke of earlier. He wrote a book in 1972 called The UFO Experience, A Scientific Inquiry. And he initially proposed 3 kinds of close encounters. You described missing time, the first encounter, sighting of one or more UFOs at a distance of 500 feet or less. So first kind, have you had any exposure to that, Alan Thomas, 500 feet or less?
No, unless that weird creature I saw flying over Fresno is one. I don't know.
Okay. The second kind is sighting of a UFO with associated physical effects like heat, electrical interference. And then we had the movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, sighting of an animated being, presumably an alien but not specifically assumed as such. And other kinds have been since produced. Fourth kind, a close encounter of the fourth kind, is a human abduction. People have indicated that. The fifth kind, voluntary bilateral contact between humans and extraterrestrials. Contact of the sixth kind, which is death of a human or animal associated with a UFO sighting. Cattle mutilations fall into that category as well. The seventh kind, the creation of a human-alien hybrid, either by sexual reproduction or by artificial scientific methods. So there
we are. There's where we're going.
There are those categories. I go back to some of the things that you were saying earlier make me think of a quote that a lot of people get wrong and attribute it to the wrong person. Arthur C. Clarke, as bizarre as he was, and the show is not long enough to go into Arthur C. Clarke, was a British scientist, essentially, who ended up creating what would be the satellite. He was a science fiction author. He was a lot more than that, which I'm not going to go into the negative aspects of him right now, but there were quite a few. But he said that, and this is a direct quote, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So you can say that the things we're witnessing now may seem to us like magic, but can you imagine taking an individual from the Revolutionary War in America, placing them anywhere into a modern U.S. city, depositing them next to an airport, exposing them to an F-117 or a B-1 bomber or anything similar to that, and having them conclude anything other than that's just damn magic?
Yeah, or coming into my studio, they would freak out. To be like, whoa. I mean, like, getting pizza delivered, those guys, they're easily impressed. See, I hang out. I've been doing this so long and interviewing so many people. One of my best friends that I go out with, he came over today asking about phone service in the mountains, which was better, Verizon or AT&T. But only we go up. Almost every video that I have on Squatch Zone right now, it's me and Adolf, or Adolf and I, going out and videotaping. He's been abducted since child, and he in fact, the listeners can go to YouTube and type in 101102, but you have to spell it all out, like TEN 10, spell out 11, and then 0, and then spell out 2. And that will bring you to a little documentary they did on these 3 guys that got abducted at a lake up in the hills up here. And it is really interesting. Now, this guy has to be home before dark. I've been trying to get him to go camping for a couple of years now, and he will not. I mean, we'll be out driving around, and when he realizes that, like, one day we got lost, we took a wrong turn in the hills, and we wound up on a cattle trail, and we didn't know how to get back, besides turning around, which would have took hours and hours, and we really didn't want to, but we wound up having to do that. So we backtracked, and we knew we were going to get home before dark. It didn't bother me, but he was white knuckle ride. I mean, he was tearing his car up, trying to get home before dark, because that's how scared he is of these aliens. I don't know how many times he's like been somewhere and then wake up somewhere else and stuff like that.
Folks, we're talking to Alan Thomas. He was relating information about 101102 and a guy named Adolf. I have to take a break. When I come back, we'll have the final half hour. We'll continue to talk to Alan. And while you happen to be ensconced within your house...
Folks, this is BZ's final hour. Step up. Last call for alcohol.
So take advantage of that, and we'll all be right back after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Southern Sense is conservative talk with Annie, the radio chick you bellows as host, and C.S. Bennett co-host. Informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey. Annie is a top conservative host on Top Talk Radio and features some of the finest guests packed with important politicians and newsmakers. Listen every Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, noon to 3 Pacific, on the SHR Media Network. Remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and among these, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Hi, this is Eric Thompson. Please check out my new Week in Review show, For Liberty's Sake, Saturday mornings, 10 a.m. Pacific Time. Check out forlibertysake.com.
Hey, are you guys listening? This is Shannon from Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM on SHR Media. I know you've been wondering where we are and what's been going on. Well, folks, that's right. We're back. So please join us 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday on SHR Media, on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, and Facebook Live at 11 a.m. on Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM at Facebook. You don't want to miss a minute. We've got lots of guests, lots of segments, and lots of interesting things. And let's face it, there's nowhere for you to go, so you might as well tune in. Again, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. We're back live on the air on SHR Media, 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday, audio and Facebook Live, audio and video. Yes, we are going to do video. Facebook Live, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. Hope to see you soon.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we're back. It's the final half hour. If you haven't shared, please share the show. Or when you see it on Spreaker, because I will put it out on Twitter. I'm at BZEP. I am very active on Twitter, at BZEP, at BZEP. Give me about a half hour after the show, and I will put it out. Share that like crazy, if you would, pretty please. We are talking tonight. This is the final half hour for Alan Thomas, and I thank him very much for being here tonight. We were talking about the nature of UFOs, what this UFO report means, what it's been saying, and Alan Thomas is of the mind that the report is a lot more objective than he would tend to believe. In other words, if I'm interpreting this correctly, Alan Thomas thinks that this is really limiting in its nature. Part of the executive summary that I was going to read was, and indicated, most of the UAP reported probably do represent physical objects, which is actually kind of a startling revelation from the military, that a majority of UAP were registered across multiple sensors to include radar, infrared, just like you mentioned, Alan Thomas, infrared, electro-optical, weapon seekers, and visual observations. One thing that I found out is there's another guy by the name of David Hambling, who writes for Aerospace and Defense. And he says UFOs could be secret U.S. military craft, says electromagnetic drive inventor. And so he says the Pentagon has a really long history of misleading reports on UFOs, and that new paper on UAPs is another example, according to a British scientist named Roger Scheuer, Shawayer. He says, looking at their accounts, I have an explanation which is hinted at but also concealed by the report. He says, I think the UAPs are American. Now, it writes, the report discusses 144 recent sightings by U.S. government personnel, and they are limited between 2004 and 2019. Many of the personnel are Air Force and Navy pilots and sensor operators. In many cases, the UFO was spotted by several means, like visual contact and radar or infrared together. And he says, or the report actually says, most of the UAP reported probably do represent, as I indicated earlier when I read it to you, physical objects, given that a majority of UAP were registered across multiple sensors. So this guy, though, says that these features are all consistent with the M drive. He calls it the M drive, EM drive, electromagnetic drive, the M drive, which he developed. and which, despite considerable controversy and misleading reports of its demise, he says is still under development by DARPA. Could that be true, Alan Thomas?
It could be. If anyone wants more insight into the drive and how it works, look up Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar, he worked on these craft. He sketched them. He tells all about them. And at first, everybody laughed at Bob Lazar, and they thought everything that he said was untruthful. And then he talked about the drives and how they work and all that. Like he says, it distorts time and space in front of it, so it actually goes into a free fall, kind of like, and it can go really, really fast. But if you really want to know what that is, look up Bob Lazar and listen to him, what he says, in Element 115, I think it is. And they all laugh. There's no Element 115. Guess what? There is now. So everything he said was true. And do a little research and then read that thing again, and you'll get a little bit ticked, because they really dodged everything. They really didn't say anything really in that report. It was really being hosed. We got hosed.
Some people were saying that when this comes out, it's going to be a lot of nothing. Perhaps a lot of smoke and mirrors and much ado about nothing. The DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, basically said, whatever this is, it's more complex than we can possibly imagine. And they admitted that they could not explain, within those time parameters, 2004 to 2019, they couldn't explain 143 of 144 of those UFOs.
That's quite a bit out of 144, isn't it?
With a relatively small period of time involved at all.
Yeah.
There's a guy named Lou Elizondo, Elizondo, and if you haven't listened to anything that he says, I would highly recommend looking him up and listening to some of the things that he has been talking about. He worked for ATIP. You can look up that acronym as well. And one of the things that he was saying, along with other people that are oriented in terms of the military environment, was even excluding extraterrestrials or where they source from or aliens or any of those things, he said that the most disturbing aspect of all of these videos is the fact that the military, whether it be the U.S. or anybody else, is so terribly outclassed by these UAPs or UFOs that there's no way that they could defend the United States, various facilities, etc., against objects like this, and that they are able to make such easy intrusions, such effortless intrusions into U.S. airspace, and probably have into other airspaces from other countries, although they're just not going to say, he said, should be of great concern to Americans and to the military. Basically, they're pulling down the pants of the American military. That was exposed as well. So if you're going for a very literal interpretation of this, and again, I think the military really didn't have much choice in this. Once a lot of these videos got out, you can look at this and realize that whatever these are, from whomever their origins may be, they completely make everything that the U.S. military possesses look like some kind of a kid playing with blocks. And they should all be very concerned, because frequently these observations are made in the midst of U.S. carrier groups, U.S. bases, foreign bases, and also places of atomic activity like reactors. Folks should also realize, and some may realize this or not, Frequently, Air Force bases have atomic reactors on them. And the reason that they have that is so that they can X-ray parts for planes when they magnaflux planes and or try to identify cracks, metal stress and or fatigue in wings or aerial surfaces like that. So there is an alignment of these observations that has historically been oriented with the military. And if the military isn't concerned about anything, they should be concerned about how these things are making the military look absolutely ridiculous, like they have no effect. And the bottom line is they don't. So,
did you know that when, speaking of nuclear facilities and bases and stuff like that, they also have a Bigfoot problem?
The military or bases?
The bases, the nuclear facilities, the Bigfoots go in and out of them and get caught on camera. They see them on camera. Sometimes they'll be standing there looking at the camera, into the camera, at the nuclear physicist staring back at them, the scientists. And they don't know how they get in there, and they don't know how they get out of there. And it's a little bit alarming as well, like they don't have control over that either at all. And I mean, military bases, nuclear facilities, and they're told they don't even want to, they don't, like the scientists and stuff like that, it happens so much that they tell them don't even report it. They don't even want to know because they can't stop them.
Well, and again, that should be of the greatest concern. If you're looking at this simply from a national security aspect. Well, here, from the report, I'll read this. Here's a couple of paragraphs. UAP threatens flight safety and possibly national security. UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, pose a hazard to safety of flight and could pose a broader danger if some instances represent sophisticated collection against U.S. military activities by a foreign government or demonstrate a breakthrough aerospace technology by a potential adversary. Now, we know the 5 aspects of aerial phenomena of UFOs. I went over them earlier in the last half hour. So they write, when aviators encounter safety hazards, they're required to report these concerns. Stop. Aviators and commercial pilots have been reporting this stuff for literally decades. Even during World War II, the name of the group Foo Fighters came from little saucers that seemed to follow World War II fighters and bombers that they observed. But anybody that reported that stuff was considered a nut job.
Yeah, even the astronauts report it, and they had to start. They started switching channels, and then the ham operators were tuning in all those channels and recording it. You could actually find some of that on YouTube where they're talking about it.
Exactly. Go to your favorite search engine, folks, and input something similar to Buzz Aldrin UFO and see what you get. Also, while you're there, put in something like Michael Collins UFO and see what you get. So, depending on the location, volume, and behavior of hazards during incursions on ranges, pilots may cease their tests and their training or land their aircraft, which has a deterrent effect on reporting. The thing about this, though, is the conclusion is such that they're not saying that these things couldn't be outside agencies or they couldn't be potential adversaries. So, do you think, Alan Thomas, that in a very literal sense, because, you got to realize that disseminating a report like this, the government or the military is going to be very, very, very literal because they've got this stuff captured on tape. So they're not going to expand beyond any any vision or do create any kind of hypotheses about this. They're going to be very, very literal, to the point where they said they can't explain 143 out of 144 of these instances. But in terms of being literal, we have stealth technology. Lots of other governments have a version of stealth technology. Is it possible, Alan Thomas, that we've just been aced by another country or another entity on the earth where Russia, China, fill in the blank, they really are that much more advanced over whatever technology we may have, military or otherwise?
The only one that would even come close is China, and it's only because we got sold out by our own government to China, where they were making all the technology. They sent it over there and said, here, you make it cheap because we don't want to pay Americans a decent wage. And they sold us out. They sold us down the river. They would be the only ones that would have anything better than what we have on the earth. But only these things that some of it, I think that we see are ours, like the what do they call it, the T3B or whatever it is.
Right, the triangles.
Yeah, they're probably ours, but only some of the craft that are circular, those are not ours, unless we have replicated them, back engineered them, or something like that. Which I don't put it past them, and I know they're not going to talk about it if they don't want the other countries to know that we have that. You know what I mean? Like they're going to be very vague just because of that, because they don't want everybody in the world to know that we do have that, any kind of thing like that. But it's all going to come out. All the truth's going to come out. We're watching it roll out right now. I mean, we're getting it right now. Everybody keep watching the news or whatever. We're going to see it roll out. All of it, the truth of everything, is going to come out. That's where we're at right now. It's going to be very interesting. The veil is going to rip completely apart, and whatever is hidden is going to be not hidden. So it's going to be really interesting the next year, I would say. And this is coming from, I have a lot of sources that I talk to and stuff like that, and everybody's saying the same thing, but we're going to see the truth, and some real dark, nefarious, really bad things that we can't even imagine could go on is going to come to light. And so, and it'll be shocking. So this stuff right here, some of it is going to be that. It's going to be in that. It's going to be shocking that we've been working with them so long. Like that, I was talking to a guy that worked in a base, underground base called a DUM, and they had to sign an NDE or NDA. Is that what they call it? NDA. When they went down,
NDA, non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah, they could not say Jesus. When they went in, they had so many levels that were human, and then there was mixed, and then lower levels were just pure alien, I guess, and the reptilian or whatever you want to call it. But only when they were in the mixed area, they couldn't even say Jesus as in like a curse word, like, oh, Jesus, whatever. They could not say the word at all. And I mean, I found that highly interesting that, I never heard that before. And then I started digging into it, and I found out it was true that the guys that work in there, and then they couldn't even talk about it for something like 25 years after they leave the employment. But some of them are starting to talk now because they're seeing that all this is going to come out, right? They said the report of the UFOs is going to come out, and which there's a bunch of different kinds of these reptilian things, that are controlling the world. Basically, is what they're saying. They control us through these large corporations and stuff, big tech and all that. They actually are controlling the banksters and everything. So all this is all going to come out, right? And this is the little drips that we're getting, like this little report. This is like the start of it. It's the beginning of everything rolling out, and we're going to watch it roll out. I mean, that I wouldn't have believed this last year, but I'm way more believing it now. Like the jab and the magnetic thing. Come to find out, they're shooting magnetic stuff into you, and it's the carrier to take it into every cell in your body. And it's not supposed, it's not supposed to go to every cell in your body, but they want it to, so that it gets into your brain and stuff like that, and they're able to control us through this magnetic stuff in there. I mean, look that up. It'll shock your shoes off when you start reading it. It's like, what? Is that alien technology? I don't know.
Now, when Alan Thomas, folks, refers to DUMBS, D-U-M-B-S, and I'm sure you were using that in a military framework, Alan Thomas, DUMB is a deep underground military base. So you can look at this. It's almost time to wrap up stuff. I got about 6 minutes left. And Alan Thomas, again, thank you so kindly for being here.
Thank you for having me, BZ. Always a pleasure.
All of this can be looked into what I would consider either very objective or very subjective veins. If you want to look into these things as very objective, what you have is a report that was just released that is vastly inconclusive but rather revelatory for the military, for the United States military, because I don't think by this time they could get around it. You can't have these things verified on any number of talk shows and on television and on the internet from pilots that are verifying the video that you've been seeing that these things are occurring and that they could be a literal threat to the U.S. military, much less any other nation, and those other nations, they ain't talking. So the UFOs could be a very important military threat to the U.S. That's one way of looking at it. Another way of saying that, well, there may be countries that have or are in the process of creating some kind of a technology, including the U.S., and Alan Thomas mentioned China. What we fail to remember is that a number of Chinese students here in the U.S. are spies, and it is known that they are clearly spies for the communist China, for the people of communist China, that 80% of all foreign national students in the U.S. are from China. That's about 840,000 people. And most recently, some have said that of Chinese students, at least 30 to 40% of them are spies for China.
Yeah.
So if you're going on the objective basis, this report and its potentials are huge.
Yeah.
Then you have to step away and ask yourself, is there any other time that you can recall in your life or mine where so many crazy, stupid things that you could never have envisioned 20 years ago occurring are occurring? And just when you've been told a couple of years ago that X, Y, or Z was a crazy conspiracy theory, now we're finding out that a lot of this crap is true.
Yeah.
So even if you're a completely objective individual and you are not willing to concede that there is anything like a UFO or a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot or the paranormal, you have to be asking yourself, in the past couple of years, in the past 5 years, why is it that everything in my life seems to have been turned upside down? And if there's one thing that everybody needs right now, I would suggest, is self-analysis, introspection. What does it all mean? And you can't be a human being and not say something similar to, this seems to be going somewhere. I'm not sure exactly where it's going, but there's so much information that I'm discovering things that weren't true. I'm discovering that were true. And so many things that I thought were true were crap and are being promulgated by alleged masters of the media. Everybody has to be asking themselves at this point in time, what is happening? Where is this going? What happened to 2019? What happened to 2020? What happened to 2021, and where are we going from here? You know, I used to be able to say that I could predict in a month, in a couple of months, in a year, in 2 years, generally where this nation was heading. I can't predict any of this crap anymore from day to day.
Not even from day to day.
And so imagine that you're a business, a small business, trying to keep ahead of all of this. Imagine that you're a human being, and I just indicated last Thursday that we find literally, this is no conspiracy theory, that massive corporations are buying houses out from underneath your nose, entire subdivisions, to turn all of you into renters so that they can control you. This is no conspiracy theory. All you have to do is be involved in the attempted purchase of a house like I was recently. There's nothing out there. And if you can find it, it's twice the price that it was 2 years ago. Everything is changing.
You have to jump on it when you see it, because if you think about it for the night, it's gone tomorrow.
You know, I hear people say that if I sold my house and then came back and tried to buy my house, I couldn't buy my house.
Right.
But that's just one aspect. That's just one aspect. So you'd better be proffering some kind of introspection or self-examination in terms of, where are we going as a nation? Where are we going as a species? And where am I going in relationship to all of this? I've never been involved in a time of such upheaval that literally changes from day to day. And you cannot expect that human beings are placed under this kind of a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly stress and not see some crazy-ass shit happening in front of our faces. And I can tell you for a fact right now that's one of the reasons we're seeing upheaval, amongst many reasons, in our streets, in our governments, on planes. People can't even be civilized anymore. But that's a story for another day.
Well, I tell you what, Izzy, before we go, just real quick.
Yeah?
If it wasn't for guys like you crying out in the wilderness and telling the truth, we would be lost, brother.
Well, and I suspect that's one of the major reasons that people are trying to shut you and me up.
Probably.
I guess I'm just a crazy conspiracy theorist. Do I have all the answers? Hell no. Have I seen UFOs? You bet I have. Are they alien in nature? I don't know. Have I seen a Sasquatch? I thought I saw a juvenile Sasquatch. I already talked to you, Alan Thomas, about that on a previous show. Okay. And every day I'm alive on this planet, what I thought could never happen is happening in front of our eyes. And the lies promulgated by social media and what I term what people call the mainstream media and what I term the American media maggots, the lies are legion.
Oh, man.
And it really is, as you indicated in the very first hour, Alan Thomas, this is getting down to, and I firmly believe this is true. Sooner or later, we're going to have to take politics out of it. Politics are a part, yeah. But I think this really is a matter of good versus evil. And it gets down to this. Either good wins or evil wins. I have looked evil in the face. I know what it looks like. Anybody that has worked in law enforcement has seen evil. This is time for a little hype. I'm going to try to get a show together next Thursday with any number of pastors and people involved in religion, and I want to pose this primary question and then expand on it next Thursday. I don't know if I can pull this off or yet, or the coordination, but I'm trying to. I want to ask the question, is man good or evil? I'll probably piss a lot of people off by saying I think man is evil, inherently evil. And
I agree.
I'll tell you why next Thursday. I'm going to have a number of people on. I'm trying to assemble a round table of people, pastors, people who are involved in religion, people who have a wide range of views, and we're going to discuss that. We're going to discuss religion. We're going to discuss how religion plays and must and should play a part in our lives. Why secularism is a no-go for any kind of a civilized society when you place technology over everything else. Oh, you mean the technology of Wuhan 19? That everybody is saying there's only one way to look at Wuhan 19. There's only one way to look at science. Yeah, that's why doctors call it a practice. In any event, next Thursday night, I want to address these larger issues. So I leave you with this and Alan Thomas. Is man good? I don't think so. Why? I'll tell you next Thursday night. Alan Thomas, thank you again ever so kindly for being here tonight. I appreciate the entire 2 hours that you donated late at night to us. And can you tell folks, Alan Thomas, what you think might be in your future, either maybe upcoming expeditions or what you plan to do and would like to do sometime down the road in the future?
Yeah, keep an eye out on, go subscribe to the Squatch Zone. I'm not doing a lot of live at the moment because I don't have the place to do that, but I will be bringing all kinds of trips to the mountains, Bigfooting. So there'll be a lot of Squatch videos coming. It's the season, I can go camping and it's not raining and snowing. So yeah, be watching for that on the Squatch Zone. Check out my new channel, The Radio Detective, and also the, Sky Squatching. That's what it's called, Sky Squatching. And that's all drone video.
I think that should be very, very cool. I've seen some of your videos, and they are really, really great in nature. So, Alan Thomas, we're going to have you back. Folks, if you think you can predict what's going to happen in the near future, good luck with that. I think we are leading in some way, in some point, to some kind of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, cataclysm, or some kind of an epiphany or an eruption, or some point at which something big is going to happen. Oh, and I completely forgot. Oh my gosh, where have I been? Forgot about this. Alan Thomas, I'm sure you've already heard of this. Folks, if you haven't, and if you're conspiracy theorists, or even if you are not, I have been completely disabused over the past 2 years of anything remotely resembling coinkydink. And yet, here comes coinkydink in our faces. Be advised that on August 11th, FEMA and the FCC plan a nationwide emergency alert test for that day, August 11th. And test messages are going to be sent to TVs and to radios, along with select cell phones that have opted in to receive test messages. So, I don't believe in coincidence. What is August 11th? Why is FEMA and FCC doing this? Why now? I've been dragged kicking and screaming into asking questions of things that may, in and of, by themselves, be completely unnoteworthy. August 11th. Just giving you a heads up, folks. Alan Thomas, any thoughts on that?
There is never any coincidences.
I don't
I
believe
was
it.
surprised about that, too. Exactly.
I don't believe it anymore. Well, folks, that's the show. I went into overtime. Thank you ever so kindly for being here. Alan Thomas, thank you for being here, and I will have you back, obviously. Look to the skies. There's a lot more going up there than you can possibly imagine. Every night, I have a set of nice NVGs made in Bulgaria, night vision goggles, and when I look up my little green screen up there, even if you don't believe in UFOs, there's a lot of stuff flying around in our atmosphere. Go look. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, right here on the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact me, you can find me on my Twitter page at BZEP, at BZEP, and on my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. Thanks to My Little Pony for my tiaras. Promotional consideration by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and by the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. Hey, I already said this. Tiaras are by My Little Pony. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, with whom I will be consorting. Shoot! Used to be a half hour, now it can be 5 minutes. Thanks to Alan Thomas for being so kind to be here tonight for the full 2 hours. Thanks to everybody for listening live. Thanks for everyone being in the chat room. Thanks for listening in podcast. Thanks to the American trucker. You keep America moving now more than ever. God bless. Take care. Be safe, folks.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Night, Ben.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mama.
Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Jim Bob.
Good night and good luck.